Hello and welcome back to our full playthrough of O Group by Ricevist Press. This is now part 2 of the game. As I said in part 1, at the end of part 1, this will probably speed up because I've explained a lot of the rules. I'll obviously bring up some new rules as they develop within the game itself. But we're going to continue and see how the British press on with their attack on Cristo against the 12th SS. So, enjoy the video. Right, we're starting turn 4, so let's see what our orders dice are. So the British have 2 6s, a 1, 2, 4, 6, 2 to 4s, 2 to 5 should I say. So we have 1 on its own does nothing, so we'll just get rid of that, ignore it. 2 6s gives them their HQ points, however they already have 6, so these just convert into normal orders. So that actually gives them 4, 8 in total. So that's not a bad sum really for the British. The Germans, on the other hand, they have 2 6s, 2 1s, and then 5 normal orders. So the 2 6s will go onto their HQ orders, so that takes them up to 6. And then they have the 2s on their own do nothing, and then they have 5 company orders as well. So now we have to roll the initiative to see who scores to go first, and this time this is just a roll off because both of them have 6, the British and the Germans. British are in red, so let's just see what we get. So they've got an 8, the Germans have got a 7, so the British are going to take the initiative in this case, and because of that they get that extra order which they then can stick in with their others. Okay, in an effort to clear this farm, the British are bringing in some artillery, so they are allowed from 1943 onwards to use a company commander to spot. Unfortunately their forward observation officer can't actually see because of these trees in the way, but their company commander can see the farm, so he's calling in the artillery. Then we have to make a choice. Do we call in regimental artillery or divisional artillery? For a company commander, it's easier for him to bring in regimental artillery. So we're going to go for that. So what we do is we roll 2d6 and that tells us what kind of support we get. So we roll these, and this is costing us 2 orders by the way, so I'm just going to put these down here, and also a fire mission as well. So we're going to take off one of the guns anyway. So we've got a 7. There are no modifiers on this roll. For regimental we get a medium battery fire mission. The next thing we have to roll is a 2d6 roll for accuracy. Now this is subject to a -1 because we have a company commander directing the fire rather than a forward observation officer. There are other accuracies, but we're just going to go with a -1 for now because that's the only one that counts. So we roll our 2d6, so that is an 8 -1 is a 7, so that is a zeroed in. The rounds are on target or dropping very near, and then we use the zeroed in morale line, so when they take hits. So a medium battery gives us 7d6 firepower. So there's 2 targets within the beaten zone being 5 inches from the aim point being that 50mm gun. So they will roll, and then we will also roll for the next target over as well. Each unit is hit on the 7d6 dice, but because they're in cover in buildings we remove 1 dice, so there's 6 dice on each. So we'll do on the 50mm gun first of all. 4s and above are hits, forcing them to take morale tests. They will survive the morale test on a 4 or above. Also they will take 1 extra shock if they decide to stay in place, otherwise they'll have to retreat. So let's have a look at the 50mm gun first of all. We'll do the damage on these. So we've scored 3 hits, so they have 3 saves on their morale, so let's see what they are. And they've saved 2 of them, so they've taken 1 shock. They're going to keep another shock on that gun to stay in position. Then we have the 6 hits against the infantry, so they've already got 1 shock on them, so let's see what happens to them. So again, 4, 5, 6 as a hit, so that's 3 hits this time. And let's see, they save again on 4 or above. They've saved 1 and lost 2, so that has suppressed them. Now again, they can either take 1 shock or retreat. If they take a shock, there's a chance that they're going to get KIA. I'm going to chance it because it's a 5 or a 6 and it's a and it's one section killed. So they're going to see if they can stay in place. 6, no, so they've lost a section. Now this is where morale starts to come in. Once a side has lost 4 or more sections, they'll start to get foobar. And once they get foobar, they start losing morale. But we'll get onto that when that happens. Okay, after that, and what I'm going to try to do now is I'm going to order this platoon here to try to rally off one of their shocks. They're only rallying one, so then they can fire. So we roll a d6, 4 or above, they will rally off a shock. So yes, they're down to 1 shock. And now they are going to fire. So they can, because they've only rallied off 1 shock, they can now fire at the Germans in that barn again. So we're going to fire at the ones that are suppressed. The infantry, they're all automatically obscured, so there's no point rolling the spotting dice, but we need to calculate how many dice we're rolling. We're starting with 6. We're taking 1 off for our shock. We're also taking 2 off because they're in buildings. They haven't moved and they're not going to move, so we're rolling 3 dice. Let's see what we get. 4, 5, 6 is the hits. So that's 1 hit. The Germans are going to test their morale against that. 4 and above, sorry, 3 and above because they're obscured, because they're suppressed. 3, so that just does nothing for them. But at least they're down to 1 shock now. The Germans then can actually react to that if they like. However, they're suppressed, so they can't react to it, so there's nothing they can do, unfortunately for them. But we've also got these 2 tanks here, which I think are now going to draw their fire against the barn rather than the troops over there. Well, I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to fire with the Firefly at the troops in the barns. So this is starting with firepower of 4. We reduce that to 2 because they're in a building. We reduce it to 1 because he has a suppression, 1 shock. Although he has to move his turret to fire, that doesn't count as moving, so he can still actually hit. And they are, as we said, obscured because they're suppressed. So 4, 5, 6 is a hit. A 2, it's a miss, flies off. And then we've also got our Sherman as well, so I'm going to give that a separate order because I wanted to see. The reason I gave it 2 separate orders is because I wanted to see what happened with this before I fired with that. If you're firing with a platoon at a single target, you can just give them 1 order. But I was going to change the different targets for the different tanks. So this one is now going to actually fire at that 50mm gun because that is quite a dangerous presence, having already damaged or shocked the our Firefly. So instead of having 1 dice, this has actually got 3 dice because its firepower is 5. So he's minusing 2 because he's firing into the woods and he hasn't fired into the buildings and he hasn't fired. We've got to see if it is obscured. So they've spotted it, but they've only done 1 hit on it. 4, 5 or a 6, and the Germans save. 5, so the Germans save. So that's the 2 tanks have done their firing. Okay, now we've got trying to desperately find these orders with where we can. So we've got another order here for this section. These are going to fire, I think, at the Germans in the woods, simply because there's more chance of them actually damaging them. So they're not moving, so we've got 6d6 to start with. We've got to see if they can spot them as well, and I think that's all it is. There's no shock on these troops or anything, so it's just 6d6 with a spotting dice. So let's have a look at what happens with that. 6, they've spotted them, and they've caused 3 hits on that section, that platoon, which already has 2 shock, so they're saving on 4, 5, 6s. So they've failed 2, and they've passed 1, so that means they are suppressed, and they have 1 excess shock, which we roll again to see if they have lost one of their sections. 5 or a 6 they have. 4, no they haven't, but they are suppressed. Right, the British have deployed another unit here. So this section here, this platoon here, I've got to stop saying section. This platoon here has deployed on their combat patrol because we are getting really bogged down in this place. So I'm just trying to bring on as many rifles as I can to reduce these. And they're going to fire at these ones in the woods. They've moved because they deployed, so they've got 4 dice and then a spotting dice as well. So let's see what we get. Spotting dice, they've spotted the Germans but only caused 1 hit. So the Germans are defending on 4 or above. Re-roll that. 6, so they defended it. They are tenacious, if nothing else, these Germans. Okay, with all that action kicking off on the right flank, we'd almost forgotten the left flank. But what we're going to do here is these British infantry are going to try to get into the built-up area of the farm. So they're going to move and then fire once they're safely in the farmland, in the farm itself. However, the Germans are going to interrupt that move by firing with one of their orders as soon as they start the moving. So we'll do that first of all, and then we'll see if the British actually get there, if they survive the fire. So we've got the MMG. Let's have a look. 4, 5, 6 as a hits, so that's 2 hits. They can re-roll 3 because of their sections in support. The British are in the open, so there's no spotting dice needed. So that's 4 hits on that British section there. And let's see what happens. 4, 5, 6 is their morale test. So they've actually lost 3. They've saved 1 but lost 3. So they have 1, 2, 1 excess shock. They're suppressed, so they actually halt where they are. We have to do a KIA roll for their section. 5 is one of their sections is killed, and they are also suppressed. And because they're suppressed while they were moving, they immediately halt. So they were basically just about to get off the ground and get into that building, but they just couldn't make it. Right, the final thing the British have done in their phase, they are starting to deploy some of their other units on the table. We're getting a little bit bogged down dealing with these German strong points, so we want to get past them. So we've deployed here and here. They used up their last order to do so, and they've also moved forward their company commander as well, so he's back into command range of these guys. But they've had to use 2 headquarters commands to do that, so they deployed these with 1 and then they moved him with 1 as well. So that's reduced their headquarters down to 4 should I say, out of 6. Okay, over here the Germans are handing out 2 orders, one of which is going to be to rally this unit and also to rally this unit as well, because this is what they need. So we're going to start with this one here. They're doing the full rally because they're both suppressed at this point. So they've passed 1 here, so that just brings them down to 2. They can't do anything else because they rolled the 3d6, but at least they've reduced some of their shock. And this one over here, same again, 3d6. This time they've passed 2 of theirs, so that's brought them down to 1 shock. But because they did their 3d6 roll, they can't do anything else. Our next German order is to give the 50mm a chance to fire at that Firefly again. So we're looking at 7 or above, but it's got -2 because it's got 2 shock on it. So we're looking at a 9 or above this time. So that has hit at least, and then we roll again, and it's just a straight roll because it's firepower 5 against armor 5. So that's a 6. He's spotted. A 6 to 5 is a damaged tank. The Germans' final order is to deploy this platoon here on the edge of this wood and fire at the British platoon as it crosses those fields. So let's see what happens. 4, 5, 6s. Because they moved, they get -2, so that's only 1 hit. So the British save. 4 and above. 4 and above is saved. So the Germans are on the field, but they haven't caused any damage. The Germans are going to use 1 final order, their company commander order. He's going to try to order these again to try to rally off any shock. So we're going. We'll see how many orders it costs him. So let's have a look. 5 is 1 extra order. So we have to take that from our pool of HQ orders. So that drops them down to 5. But then they're going to roll their 3d6, and they've rallied off 3 shock. So that did work. They had 2, so they've got no shock anymore. Okay, we're on to turn 5 now, so let's see what our command dice give us. So for the British, we have 1, 1, so that disappears. 2 6s, which is good because they'd spent 2 in the last turn. So that means they're now back up on 6, and then they have 6 other orders. So that's a reasonable amount. That's probably seems to be about the usual amount. The Germans, on the other hand, they've got 2 HQ points. That takes them up to 6. They lose 1 because you can only have 6 maximum. However, they have triple 1, so that's a hesitant company, which is probably not good at this point in the game. And they also have 4 orders as well. So let's find out which of those companies is the hesitant one. It's either, well, going to be Company A or Company B, because they're the only ones that are on the table at the moment. They've still got some in reserves. So 1 to 3 is going to be Company A, and 4 to 6 Company B. So 4 to 6 is Company B, so it's the guys on the right hand side. And then our next quick action is just to roll for our initiatives. They're both on 6, so it's whoever gets the highest roll. Again, red being British. So they've got a 5, the Germans have got a 3, so the British have won the initiative, and again they are going to take the initiative, so they get that extra order. Right, the first action the British are doing, first order should I say, is they're using 2 to get the battalion mortars to fire under the observation of the company commander at the Germans here in the farm again. So I forgot to do this the first time round. We have to roll for accuracy, -1 because we're spotting with our company commander, not our foo. I forgot to do this, but what I also forgot to do as well was to bring out the ambush point as well, so it kind of cancelled itself out. So we see what the accuracy is. 2d6 -1, so that's an 8, is a 7, that's zeroed in. The rounds are on target and are dropping very near. So we use the zeroed in morale test. When they are hit, they are regular troops, so they will survive any hits on a 4 or above. But then we also go on to our mortar fire, and this will hit every unit within 4 inches. The first one being the 50mm gun, and then also on the other troops as well. So both targets there. And both of these should be taking 5d6. But because they're in buildings, they get a -1, so we're rolling 4d6. 4s and above are hits, so this is on the gun, the 50mm gun. That's 1 hit, so it will survive on a 4 or above. Yes, it's passed. And then we get 4 hits on the platoon as well, the infantry, so that's 3 hits on them. So their morale test, same again, 4 or above. And they passed 2 but failed 1, so they are now on 2 shock. So our next order, this platoon is going to try to rally off the shock that they're on, so we need a 4, 5 or 6, and they've got it. 6, so they've got rid of their shock, and they're only rolling the 1 dice for the rally, so they can now fire. So they are doing at the German section with the 2 shock on it already. We've got to see if they've spotted them because they're in cover. So let's have a look. 3, they haven't spotted them, but they've hit them with all 4 dice. The Germans are defending on a 3 or above for their morale. Oh, that is bad. 3 on their morale, so that takes 1 takes them up to suppressed, and then that gives them 2 hits over their suppression. That's an automatic KIA on 1 of their sections, so that's another German section taken off. Okay, we're going again with the next British platoon. They are firing at the same target because they're already suppressed. Same again. We've got our spotting dice and our firing dice, so let's see, they've spotted them, that's a 4, and this time they've caused 3 hits on them. The Germans this time are defending on 4s and above, so let's see, and they're suppressed already, that's 3 hits, so that's an automatic KIA because they're 2 above, so that's 1 off. They now only have that medium machine gun, so that has to roll because we've got the 2 excess hits, kill that unit, and then we also have 1 excess unit hit, which we roll a dice for, 5 or a 6, and that has killed as well. Let me roll it in there instead of out of there. A 1, it's still in place, but very close to destroying that section, or that platoon should I say. They can't fire back because they're suppressed. I'm going to keep up this fire by putting another order onto that platoon there. They are going to be firing exactly the same again at that medium machine gun. So we're trying to draw as much fire into this as possible. With our spotting dice, they've spotted it and then caused 2 hits on there. So now what they need to do is, the Germans try to save these. 4s and above, they save. 2 failures. So they've actually lost their 4th unit. So when they lose their 4th unit, the Germans now get their first foo bar marker. And a foo bar marker goes down with the unit, with the HQ, and it reduces their command dice by 1. As soon as they reach 3 of these, it's game over. Okay, because we got this foo bar, the Germans have to do a command crisis roll. Now, normally in the rules, one player would choose a dice, they would place a dice on the table, choose a number, hide it, and the opposition have to guess what the number is. They have 2 chances to guess it. If they get it right in the first chance, then their command points, their HQ command points are reduced by 1. If they get it right on the second roll, guess, then their HQ points are reduced by 2. So I'm playing solo, so this is going to be a little bit difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll a dice against each other. First of all, the white one is the Germans' guess, the red one is the British. So the British are going to roll first of all. So this is their number. Their number is a 1. The Germans are going to guess or roll. If it's a 1 the first time, then they lose 1 command point. If it's 1 the second time, they'll lose 2 command points. Otherwise, they don't lose any. So the first guess is a 5. The second guess is a 5. So we can't have the same number twice, so I'm going to have to re-roll that until I get a different number. Oh, it's a 1, so that was their second guess. So the Germans have lost 2 command points from their headquarters. Alright, we've got the British are throwing in another order here to this platoon of tanks, the 2 sections. They're operating together as a platoon. They're going to try to rally the shock first of all. So let's see what we can do. Off that Firefly, a 4, they've passed, so they've rallied the shock off on the Firefly. They are now turning both of their guns onto the 50mm gun here. So let's just work this out. It needs spotting dice. So we've got 4 for the Firefly first of all. However, it is damaged and it's also firing at buildings as well. So it's only down to 1, but we might get something out of this. 4, 5 or 6 to see if they spot it. So they spotted it, but did nothing because that's a 1. The Sherman 75 has a firepower of 5. So this, in fact, is going to be reduced down to 3 because it's only firing in the building, because it's not damaged. So let's see what happens here. A 2, they haven't spotted them, but they have landed 3 shots on it. So they're defending on a 3 or above for their morale test. They failed 1, but passed 2. So that means they are suppressed and they can't return fire. Right, the British have used up their final company order to order this company from the company on this side of the field to move down the road and to actually contact the German Company A combat patrol. When a combat patrol is contacted by enemy troops, it takes it off. So what we've done there is basically shut down the Germans' potential for bringing an AFV or another unit on further forward. And also the British have used a headquarters order to bring on the tanks to get them out, so they've used a rapid move to move forward. They also used a rapid move on this platoon here to move towards Cristo itself to try to capture some of these built up areas. So they're almost on the edge of the village at the moment. And the British finally are going to go all out and use up a command order for their company commander to also use up HQ commands to get this unit again to fire at the 50mm gun. So let's just see how many extra orders it costs us. It's a first rate battalion. We roll the dice. It's a 2. It costs us 2 extra orders. So we take 2 off the HQ dice, so they're down to 2. But at least this unit now gets to fire at the 50mm gun, which is suppressed. So it's automatically obscured anyway, so I don't need the spotting dice. So let's just roll to see how many hits we have. 3 hits this time. It saves on a 3 or above because it is suppressed, and it has failed 2, and 2 fails on that is a KIA, so that's another unit off. So that's their 5th unit off. Once they get to 8, they will get another foo bar and also a command crisis roll. So the Germans are slowly getting whittled down on this flank. Okay, on the Germans' turn, first thing they're going to do is order in artillery. So they're bringing in, they're going to try to get their regimental artillery to fire, and they're hoping to hit it on this unit here, so it will at least cause some damage either side of them. So we roll our dice to see if we actually get the support in the first place. So let's have a look. We have a 9, so a 9 for regimental is a medium battery mission. So that gives us 7d6 on each target and also 5 inches of radius. So let's just check who's actually in that. So this was going to be our central point, so the tanks are in it, as are that platoon there as well. So 3 targets are within it. We also need to see what the accuracy is. It's not the same aim point as before, so we just roll the dice, and it is the forward observer who is spotting for this because he can see them. So we have an 8. An 8 is zeroed in, so that's on target. There's no other issues. Right, so we work through each of our targets. We'll start with the one in the middle. Them being in the woods doesn't affect them anything. We said it's a medium battery, so we've got 7d6, and 4 or above affects them. So let's have a look for the first one. So the first has taken 5 hits, so we've got to roll those 5 hits as defences. 4+, and they save. They've saved all of them apart from 1, so they've taken 1 shock. Then they have the next unit, so I'll do the next infantry platoon, the one in the open there. So these have taken only 3 hits this time, so their saves are 4+. Again, they've only taken 1 shock as well. And then we've got the AFVs, so same again, 7 hits on them. So let's have a look. This is 1, 2, 3 hits this time, and they are also saving on a 4+ as well. So they've actually taken 2 shock on that platoon. So not a great fire, and the Germans have used up their 1 mission for the game. The Germans have now used one of their orders to bring on a Panther. Because the patrol marker was connected to a road, they can actually deploy an AFV from it, so they have done here. This is deployed from here. It's obviously zoomed up the road to get in behind the Firefly and the Sherman. It is firing at that Firefly. It needs a 7 or above to hit. It's moved, so it's a -1, so we need an 8 or above to hit. So that's a 7, so that becomes a 6. So it's actually missed. That's not going to be a good result for the Panther. It really needed to hit on that one. Our final German order is to get, or at least company order, is to get this unit to now fire at the British over there, so they're going to do that. They need 4, 5s and 6s to hit. They're in the open. They're not suppressed or anything, so let's just see what happens. So we've got 5 hits. The British are saving on a 4+, their morale roll, so they've saved 3 of them, but 2 have affected them, so that's suppressed them, so they can't fire back. And I think what we'll do here, there's a German company commander just behind them, so I think he's going to chuck in his order as well with them. So let's find out how many extra orders that costs out of their HQ. We roll our dice. A 3 is, it costs them an extra 2 orders, so that drops their HQ orders down to 2, but they get to fire yet again at that British unit. So they're doing that, they're suppressed, so they're automatically obscured, so they're saving on a 3+ now. So let's just see if they're hit anyway. 1, 2, 3 hits, saving on a 3 or above. So have a look. So that's 2 non-saves, 1 save. 2 non-saves is 1 unit KIA'd automatically, or 1 section KIA'd. Right, we're now on to the 5th turn. So let's have a look at what our orders dice are. The Germans are only rolling 8 because they have 1 foobar marker. What they can do at this point is they can ignore that foobar marker and roll their full dice. However, it means that the foobar marker, the one they have here, is actually counted immediately as a roll of a 1. So in this case, if they added their extra 1 and they rolled 2 1s, that would give them 3 and then cause a hesitant company to appear on the table. So you take that risk. At this point, they're just going to stick with their 8 dice. They don't want to override their foo bars at this point. Let's just see what we get. Just knock those so they're going. So we have a 1 on its own is doing nothing anyway. We have a 6 there, so that gives them a headquarters order, so that takes them up to 3. And then we have 6 more company orders as well. The British, on the other hand, are still on their full 9 dice. So let's roll those, see what we get. There's no headquarters orders in there I can see. They do have a 1 on its own, does nothing. So that will then give them 2, 4, 6, 8 company orders. So our next thing to do now then again is to roll that initiative. This time the Germans get a +3, the British get a +2. So British again in red. So let's have a look. The British have got 5, 6, 7. The Germans have got 9, 10, 11. So the Germans in this case, they're going to take the initiative and they're going to go first because they need to get moving. So the Germans for their first orders on this turn have used 2 orders to bring in reserves. This costs 2. They can bring up to 2 platoons from the same company that is in reserve onto the table. They'll roll 3d6 and move the full dice moves onto the table, so they could get quite far. In this case they didn't. The first one's got 7 inches in, the other one's got 9 inches in, but it's mean that they've both been able to occupy these built up areas in Christo itself. They've also brought on their company commander, because this is, if you'll remember, this is the company with only 2 sections in it anyway, so this is the entire company. So they've brought pretty much almost everybody is on the table at this point with the Germans. So our German company commander for Company A has deployed a combat patrol for 1 order, deployed it in the farm here. This then in turn will deploy again, but this time obviously with a unit. So this is the final unit of Company A. So they're back in the farm, so it's filled up again despite being cleared by the British previously, and they are then going to fire across at the British infantry. So we're firing over here with 4d6 against those British. Let's have a look. 4, 5, 6 are the hits. So that's 3 hits. They're saving on a 4+. That is 1 save, 2 fails, so 2 shock. They may fire back, or they're allowed to fire back if they want to, using one of their orders, but I might just wait with them because that will really reduce their number of dice they can fire. So I'm going to wait and rally them and then fire, I think, in their own turn. Meanwhile, we also have our Panther over here as well, which is going to take a shot. So our Panther is rolling, needs a 7 or above on 2d6. It's not moving, so that's a 9, so that's a hit. Its strike is 11 against 5 armour on the side of the Firefly, so that's a difference of 6. So the saving roll for the British is on a -6. It has been spotted. So let's see what we get. We've got 10 there. -6 is a 4. 4 is a knocked out Firefly. So that's no good. So that's another unit off for the British. So they're now on 3. 1 more and they will get their first foo bar. Okay, on the Germans' right flank, they've got this platoon. They are firing at the British, who are just in front of the town now. So they're firing with 6 dice. So let's look. 4, 5, 6 are the hits. So that's 4 hits, 2 misses. So we roll for those on the British. 4+ are saves. 1 save, 3 shock. So that's them suppressed. So they can't return fire. The final German order is this section over here with their medium machine gun is going to shoot at the the infantry in the open there. So they're suppressed, so they're actually already obscured, but they get to re-roll up to 3 of these misses, and they've missed 4 there, so they re-roll 3 of them. We get 1 more hit, so that's 3 hits on these. These are surviving on a 3+, so that's 2, but 1 extra hit, they're already suppressed, so we take another KIA roll. 5 or a 6, and that's another one off. No, they're okay. Okay, in the British turn, or the phase should I say, they've brought forward their other 2 sections of tanks, so another Sherman and the other Firefly, and they are going to take shots at the Panther here. So they burst through the hedge into the fields and they're trying to take out this Panther now. So they need a 7 or above to hit for both of these. The Panther has a frontal armour of 11, but the Firefly has a firepower of 11, whereas the M3 has a firepower of 7. They both moved though, so we need a 7 or above to hit anyway, but -1 because they have, as I said, they both moved. So let's do the Firefly first of all, see if that hits. So that's a 3, becomes a 2, no, that's a miss. The Sherman, 4 becomes a 3, so both have actually missed. Right, that Panther is out of orders. There's no more German orders left, so it can't return fire. But what we're going to do is trying to get rid of this as quick as possible. I'm going to give the commander an order to again bark orders at those tanks and get them to fire again this time round. So this is a variable order command. So let's have a look, see how many it costs us. 6. Oh, that's no extra, so it's only costs us the company commander's order. But the tanks fire again. So let's see if they hit again this time. We're still the same, 7 or above with a -1. So we'll start with the Firefly again. 4, that's a 5. -1 is a 4, so that's a miss. And then we've got the Sherman. That's a 9, this time -1. So that one has actually hit. As I said, the Sherman has got a firepower of 7 against the Panther's 11 armour. So we roll the dice for the Panther being hit, and he gets a -4 on this because of the difference between the firepower and the armour. So that is 8 -4. Sorry, it's a +4, not a -4. So +4 and 8 is 12. 9 or above is no effect. So it just bounces off the Panther's armour there, unfortunately. Our next order is for the Sherman here. He's going to try and reduce shock. It actually blocks line of sight from the Panther, so he's just going to basically reduce his shock with 3 rolls. That's 3 plus, that's 4, that's a 5 and 2 6s. So he can reduce 3 shock. He only had 2 anyway. So he is back in the game. Okay, the British are just going to try to spend a turn really rallying off shock here. So the first one's here. Let's have a look. 3-3-3, that's a fail. So they actually retreat, and they will retreat 3d6, adding all the dice together. Let's have a look. Oh, that's 9, 10, 11, 12 inches. Oh, that's... And they'll try to fall back behind cover, so I think they're going to come back to somewhere behind here, so they're out of line of sight. That's not great, though. At least they stay on the table. Right, well, we're going to have to continue trying to rally off some more shock over here, so we're going to throw some in on these ones who are suppressed. Let's have a look. They've got 2 of them off, so they're down to 1 shock over here at least. Don't really want to burn up all my orders trying to rally off shock over here, though. With that Panther panic in place, I've kind of forgotten about what was happening over here. So these are going to try and rally off shock as well. Oh, and they failed every one of theirs as well, so they have to fall back because they're suppressed. So they're falling back 3d6. So they're falling back 9 inches. So let's see how far they fall back. All the way back to where they started from, practically. That's not good at all. No shock is rallied. We are trying to make a last-ditch attempt to actually reach Christo itself, so I'm going to push these forward with a rapid movement for another order over here, and they're going to try to get in at least into one of these built-up areas. So let's have a look at this. They're using the rapid movement, so they can't fire. So let's have a look. They take the highest 2 scores, so that's 10 inches. So they are actually able to make it into this building here. So yeah, they've captured 1 built-up area at least. And we've got our carrier and our MMG as well, attached MMG with the platoon. The Germans could react to that, but they don't have any orders to do so, so they can't at the moment. But The British are actually in Christo itself at this point. With their final 2 orders, the British are going to deploy their reserves. They're going to make a beeline for Christo itself, heading straight down here by the side of the road itself. So we basically spend 2 orders. They can bring on up to 2 platoons of their reserves, which they've got. They've got full company of reserves, and they do a rapid move using all 3 dice. So they can move 9 inches in. So let's see, let's place these orders tokens here. The first one here, and then the other one on the other side of the farmland here. So this is their first platoon. They're also bringing their platoon commander in as part of this move as well, so he can then deploy the combat patrols from those from the rest of the reserves to bring in the other units as quick as possible. So a quick sit rep at the end of turn 6. The Panther has appeared and is causing much consternation on this left flank of or the right flank, should I say, the British. The farm itself here still hasn't fallen, despite it taking heavy fire from the British attack. The British attack has slightly stalled in those fields. I thought that was going to be the main thrust, but it doesn't seem to be. Over here in Christo itself, the Germans have moved in to position. They've got a couple of the built-up areas, but also a British platoon has as well managed to get into one of the built-up areas. We brought on our reserves, which we mightily need as well on this left flank, because we've had that reversal of fortune where our platoon there fell back after failing their rally test. So still all to play for at this point, but let's crack on with the next turn. So I've just done the rolls for the command orders, and the Germans got 2 for their HQ, as did the British. They then got 5 orders themselves, and then they lost 1 as well. The British also lost 1 but got 6 orders. The Germans have only rolled 8 dice because they've got 1 foobar marker. So let's do the initiative. Germans in red, Germans in white again. They get a +5. The British have got a HQ orders of 4, so they get a +4. So the Germans, so that's 8, 9. The British have got 9 +4 is 13. So the British gain the initiative, and they are going to take the first move. So they also gain an extra order as well. So our first British order is going to be a platoon order to the tanks over here. They're both going to whack away again at this Panther. It will fire back, but they get a shot at it first of all. So let's go with that. We'll start with the Sherman itself. We're looking at 7 or above. It hasn't moved, the Panther hasn't moved, so we're looking at 7s or above. So the Sherman's missed, the Firefly has missed as well. They are terrible. The Panther is going to use an order to react fire, and again return fire at that Firefly. So 7 or above, that's a 6, so that is also a miss as well. So the Germans' firepower isn't as good as British anyway. Over here we have the Sherman. This is reversed out from behind the cover of the Firefly that is broken there, and that is going to try to lamp that Panther as well. So we need a 7 above, but a -1 because it's moved. So though it's an 8 or above, so that's a miss again. Meanwhile, on the British left flank, Company C have pushed forward with their sections here, with their platoons here. They've also deployed a combat patrol this far forward as well with the order, and then they're going to use another order to actually deploy the units on that as well. So they drop in there, they can't move, they can fire, but I think those Germans are probably just out of range. 14 inches is rifle range, yeah, they're just out of range. So that's use of those, and then the British still have 1 order left, which they're going to do some firing in Christo itself. Okay, over here in Christo, they've got the infantry here. This platoon has got into this building, set up their MMG, and they are now firing at the Germans here. They're at close range, they've got their MMG, but the Germans are in cover, so we need to see if we can spot them. Let's have a look. So we've got a 5 on the spotting dice, so that's a hit. So they spotted them. Then we've got 2 hits, but because we've got the attached MMG, we can also re-roll up to 3 dice because they've got 3 sections in there, so they'll roll these ones as well. So that's another 2 hits on those Germans. So let's just see what happens to them. They're saving on a 4 or above because they've been spotted. So let's have a look. So they have failed once, so they've taken 1 shock. And the Germans will fire back. So they're now firing back with 4 dice and the spotting dice. 4 dice because they're close range. They've only got rifles, and they are in the British in cover. So let's have a look. So that's actually 4 hits, and they've also spotted them as well with a 4 there. So that's 4 hits. British are going to do their saves. 3 or above, 4 or above, sorry, because they've been spotted. So that's 3 hits. So the British are actually suppressed there as well. So we're using up 2 HQ orders now for this section, for this platoon and this platoon to fire at the Germans here. We're going to use this first one first. This is still full. This one only has 2 sections in it because the other one is the Piers. So we'll start with the first one. They're firing at the Germans in the woods. They're in cover, so they have to roll their cover dice, their spotting dice. So they've seen them. They've got a 4 on that, and then they've also hit with 3 as well. So let's see what happens to those Germans if they defend against that. So they've taken 1 shock, unfortunately for those. Then the Germans will get to fire back, so they're going to use up an order to return fire at the British there. So they're firing back with, they start with their 6 dice, -1 because of their shock, and then also the spotting dice as well. And they're going to be firing at these ones that fired at them. So let's have a look at that. Because they're in cover as well, aren't they? So the 6, they have spotted them, but they've hit them with 3 hits. So let's see if the British survive this. They are on 4s and above, so they take another shock, but they save 2 of them, so they're now on 2 shock. Then we've got the other British section over here. They're firing as well. They're on 1 shock. They've got 2 sections, and they are also spotting as well. So they've spotted them, that's a 6, and they've hit with 2 of their dice. The Germans can't react to this because they've used up their order already. So let's see what happens to those Germans anyway. So they've failed 1, so that takes them up to 2 shock there as well. Right, the Germans only have 1 order, well 2 orders left, so they are using the first one with the Panther to fire out that Firefly over there. We're looking at a 7 or above. Neither have moved, if I remember correctly. So we're looking at 7 or above. A 6 is a miss. So that's not great for the German Panther again. The British can't fire back because they've used up all of their orders. Our next German order is going to be down here in Cristo itself. So this platoon is firing at the British, who are already suppressed across the yard. They're at close range. They're firing into buildings, so it's +1 but -2, so they're rolling 4 dice because they also have a -1 on there from their shock as well, and they're firing at somebody who is in cover, so they've spotted them, and they've also caused 3 hits on those British platoons. So we roll those. They're already suppressed, so any shock is going to be excess shock here. So let's have a look. 1 excess shock, so that means we have to roll again for a KIA. 5 or a 6 it is. It is, so one of the sections is off, so that's a British KIA. So that means the British have now got their first foobar. So we have to do the British command crisis roll. So the German, if you remember from before, they are choosing a 6. So let's see, the British, their first test, no, and their second guess, no. So they don't lose any HQ points at least. And the Germans are then going to use a HQ point to get this platoon to fire at the British over here in the woods, who are already on 2 shock. So a 4 on their spotting dice if they've spotted them, and they've hit them with 3 hits. So let's see if the British survive this. 4 or above. So they've survived all 3 of them. So no effect. So turn 8, and I've done our command roll already. Again, just did it off camera. So the British have ended up with 2, 4, 6, 7 orders, and the Germans have ended up with 2, 4, 5 orders, but also 2 HQ orders as well. So the Germans are on 6 HQ orders, the British are on 2. So let's see who gets the initiative. The British get 2 on that, so that's 10. the Germans get 6 on that, so that's 15. So the Germans have got initiative, and again, I think they're going to take the initiative again because they want to try to cause as much damage on the British at this point. Right, first up, the Germans are firing with their Panther, and this time again at the Firefly. So let's have a look. We need a 7 or above. It's not moved. Target hasn't moved. That's an 11. That is a hit. It has a firepower of 11 against a frontal armour of 7 on the Shermans, on the Fireflies. So that is a -4 on the results. So let's have a roll. So that's 6 and 2 is 8. -4. A 4 is knocked out. So this Panther is chewing up these British tanks. So that's another section lost for the British. So they're now on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They've already got 1 foobar, 3 more, and then they will take another foobar. Meanwhile, over here, back in the town itself, this section here is going to rally and then try to fire. So they rally. They're only rallying 1 dice. If they pass, then they can rally off their shock and then fire. However, if they fail, they either rally a shock or they move or they fire. So they're pretty restricted. So let's see if they pass first of all. They've rallied their shock because that was a 4, so that's taken that off, and then they can fire at the British here, who are in close range but are in buildings as well. So we're looking at 4, 5, 6s, and with a spotting dice. So we've spotted them, but only 2 hits. There's no re-rolls because there's no MMGs. These are still suppressed, so any extra hits will go on, any extra losses will go on their chance of being killed. So let's have a look. So that's 1, and they've saved 1. So we have to roll for that KIA. 5 or a 6, and there's another section KIA'd. 3, no, it's not KIA'd, so they're okay at the moment just. And then the Germans have sprung their final ambush. There's 75mm over here. This is firing at this suppressed section, platoon over here. So we're looking at 4, 5, 6s to hit. They're in the open, they don't need spotting. Sorry, no, they are suppressed, so they're automatically obscured anyway. But that's 2 hits. So we re-roll those. They're saving on a 3 or above. And 2 6s, so they've saved. So over here we're going to try to rally shock on these, and they're using all of their dice to do so. So that's 3 shock off. They only had 2, so that takes them back to normal fighting stance. Then back on this flank, the German MMG over here is opening fire on the British as they are advancing over those fields. They're still suppressed, so they're obscured, but we're looking at 4, 5, 6s here. They can re-roll up to 3 because they've got the MMG with a platoon, so they're going to re-roll 2 of them. They both miss as well. So that's 4 hits. They're saving on 3 or above though. So that's all of them saved. So no effect. And then the Germans are going to use up their final company order for these here to fire across the ones in the field who have got 1 shock on them. They're literally just rolling straight dice. There's no spotting or anything because they're not obscured. Let's have a look. We're looking at 4, 5, 6s. That's 1 hit. And 6 is a save for the British. Right, over here we're starting with the British. They are going to try to whack this Panther with their Sherman over here. So this is firing on a 7. It's not moved. The Panther's not moved. So we need a 7 or above. So that's a hit, the first time ever. Or it feels like it. Panther's armour is 11. The firepower of the Sherman is a 7. So we roll for the Panther, but with a +4 on the effect. So that's 5 and 8. 5 and 8 +4 is 12. So there's no effect. So that has bounced off. The Panther can fire back. He's going to use a HQ, German HQ order to fire back. So this again 7 or above to hit. So that is also a hit as well. So now the Panther has a firepower of 11 against the Sherman's armour of 7. So this is actually a -4 this time. So they've rolled a 4, -4. That's knocked out another Sherman. So that is another loss on the British. So they're almost onto their second foobar at this point. And then the British are then going to fire with their final Sherman over there. So a 7 to hit, it's hit again. So again, this is a +4 for the Panther's save. So that's 12, double 6, 12 is 15. So again, that just bounces off. over here, I've used the British here to try to get this last built-up area of Christo. If they can get this and capture it, hold it, then game is over. They've won. However, the Germans are firing at them here, or trying to opportunity fire at them. They'll roll a dice. If they get a 4 above, because it's the infantry firing, then they can opportunity fire before they start their move, or partial way through it. However, if they fail, they can still opportunity fire, but only when they've ended their move, so when they're in cover. So let's have a look. A 1, they failed, they needed a 4 or above, so they can only fire at them in the cover, and also because the British are moving as well, so they are they are firing at a moving target and in the buildings, so they're only rolling 2 dice for this. So 4, 5s and 6s are hits. Oh, and they've got to roll that spotting dice. They missed them both anyway. That was a 3, but they had spotted them, but they've missed them in the firing. The British aren't returning fire anyway because they have they've done their triple move anyway. And then our next British order is to try to unsuppress this section in here. They're using all 3 dice to try to rally as an order. So this is all they're doing. They've got 2 of them down, so they've brought them their shock down to 1, but they can't do anything else at this point. We also have this other section here. These are going to try and rally. So that's rallied all of this. So they are no longer suppressed. So that's a good roll for them. The British have also pushed forward this platoon here to come into the flanks of the town, and they're going to get an opportunity fire from the Pack 40. The Germans are using up another headquarters order. Let's see if they can do it. They need a 3 or above because they're a heavy weapon, a 3, so they can actually do their fire as before the British begin their move. So they're firing all of their dice. 4, 5, 6 is a hit, so that's 2 hits on these. They're saving on 4, 5, 6. They've saved both of them, so no effect anyway. And our final British order is to rally these here. They're using all 3 dice, so they've only rallied 1, but they managed to get it down to 2 at least, so they're no longer suppressed. Okay, those final orders have ended the British turn, and I'm going to declare this a British victory, because in the victory conditions it says that you either reduce the Germans' foobar to 3 or capture 2 of the built-up areas of Christo itself. And as you can see, the British have captured 2 areas of the built-up areas as we designated them at the start of the turn. So these ones here. The Germans really there should have probably pushed forward these platoons into those front areas, but I didn't think about it at the time, and the opportunity was obviously lost. And we've also got a couple more platoons heading down anyway. They're coming down to reinforce this whole area of fighting. So I think they would pretty soon be overwhelmed in the fighting of the village itself. So I'm going to declare it a victory. However, let's have a quick look across the table and see where the rest of the fighting went on. So we've got this British unit here. They took a right hammering, and they really got pegged down by this German unit lining the woods here on this end, by the farmland that they never actually gained as their objective. Over on the other side, that Panther really tore a hole right through the British tanks. It actually destroyed 3 of the British tanks there, the Dragoons Guards, so it's taken out 2 of the Fireflies and 1 of the Shermans. And to be honest with you, I doubt that Sherman would last very long. You can't really go toe-to-toe with Shermans and Panthers. This farm also proved to be an incredibly hard point to break through, and the British infantry over here really kind of just got bogged down on this line here, and were not really able to push any further forward because the Germans just kept resupplying them the farm with their infantry, and also the ones here helping, just holding this line here. So at the end of that turn, the Germans had 1 foobar, and the British also had 1 foobar as well. The British still had another fire mission left over for their artillery if they wanted to bring that down at some point. So they were overstocked on that. But that's kind of how the table looks at the end of it. Now, let's have a talk about the game itself and how does it play. What have we learned? First of all, we've learned don't send Shermans against Panthers unless they're probably coming in from behind. That Panther getting in on that flank was a really good move, I think. Also, the Germans really should have got really further forward into the town itself and held those built-up areas much earlier than they did. That'll probably be something I would do earlier rather than later. I was kind of waiting to see where the British attack would come in. So you can see as we played this and as I've been learning, and as I say, I've made loads of mistakes anyway. I've tried to identify them where I can in the videos in part 1 and part 2 of this, but I've made lots of mistakes, but it hasn't really detracted from the game, I don't think. I mean, don't use this as an instructional video, use it as an enjoyment video just to see how the game plays and what the kind of level it is that you're playing at. What I like is it is incredibly abstracted. You're not thinking about what kind of actual weapons are firing. When you're looking at the infantry platoons, they are just firing as rifles and integrated machine guns. The movement is very simple. It's very easy, very quick to pick up. The firing, also especially infantry firing, is very simple. Very few looks at charts after you've played a few turns of this. The armoured fighting vehicle firing is a little bit more complex, but I think again, once you've picked it up, once you've played it a few times, you'll quite easily remember what the armour values are of your tanks and also just what the firepower is. It's probably worth making a roster before the game starts of what they are, just so you can refer to it a lot quicker than I had to going through the charts and things. Secondly, I really like the combat patrols. Thirdly probably, isn't it, at this point? The combat patrols are excellent. The fact that you can push them out. I'm playing this as solo, but I think playing this against somebody means that you can really confuse them with the combat patrols as just exactly where your attack is going to land. So you can push these out as scouts. You can really push them out maybe up a flank or something just to make it look like you're going there, feint on a flank and attack on the other one. So they will be very useful in games where you're playing face to face. They're very useful for obviously deploying troops. It's very different to a lot of other games in this particular scale, in battalion scale, because most of them, as I've said before, you end up starting on your start line, your back line of your table, and you're before you know it, you're just moving 6 inches a turn forward until you meet in the middle. In this, very different. There's a lot more tactical thinking at that level. I like the orders, the fact that you are incredibly restricted by what you can do because of how many orders you have, and just also how many when you start biting into your headquarters orders as well. Do you keep them for the next turn for the initiative, or do you spend them out and just try and push your units forwards? The other thing I'd liked as well is the initiative. It shows that even as a defender, so for instance when this Panther took the initiative, when the Germans took the initiative on the last turn, they were still able to knock out a lot of British tanks there. So even as a defender, you're not just waiting for the attacker to come in, you're using it to have an aggressive defence and try to blunt that attack as it comes in. That felt really good as well when the Germans were able to catch it, and that obviously comes off the back of having a high command headquarters orders. So yeah, I think overall really enjoyed this. I'm going to play this again at some point. I'd like to mix it up a bit, put in some second-rate battalions as well, maybe some Russians, and just see how we go with those games. Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching this and the other parts of this as well. I might put them together into one large video, but for now, if you've enjoyed it, please do tell me in the comments. Leave a comment, let me know, give me a like, give me a thumbs up, give it a share on social media or whatever. And there will be more O Group games coming at some point in the future. And please, as I say, I do know that I've made lots of mistakes, I don't need reminding of it, but if you feel like telling me where I've made mistakes, then do so. Alright, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll show you the next video soon.